Got a big fight coming up. I say that it's a big fight because every fight that a fighter, a warrior goes into the ring or to the octagon, they can't take their opponent lightly. But the fight got moved beginning from June now to July 6th. Nate Diaz. How's preparation been for this fight?
Preparation's actually been spot on, amazing. The original date, it wasn't quite known to the public, but the original date was April 20th. Then it got moved to May, then June, then July. The whole time I've been here in Vegas preparing just straight boxing since January. So the preparation's been long, man. This is one of the longest training camps I've ever had for one particular bout. It's like if I was getting ready for a 4-man tournament to be held in one night. So I'm definitely in great shape. And I actually, though I was bothered that the date kept getting switched, a lot of goodness did come from it, in the sense that I had more time to prepare for just boxing. As everybody knows, I'm an MMA fighter. We stand different. We're blocking kicks, blocking takedowns, all types of stuff. So our stance is different. How we generate power is different. It was kind of like a blessing in disguise that I got so much time just to hone in on the craft and just work straight boxing and not be worried about stuff and takedowns or this and that, and just get as much actual boxing application as I could. Be around other good boxers, seeing how they hit the bag, how they move around, how they generate their power, how they distribute their weight. So it's truly been a blessing. And when it comes to preparation, I'm tip-top shape, ready to rock and roll.
Just recently what took place, Capetillo, what stood out the most? Fernando Vargas said, hey, this is a man of God. Like, he goes to church, but you put your hands on him, he's going to put you down. Yeah. That media thing, I did not expect it to go that way. I'm going to be honest with you.
Me neither. I didn't expect Nate's guys, his gimps, to be such cowards. Like everybody knows he's my coach. He's obviously on the more mature side. He's not like a young buck. He's not 25 years old, and he's not a pro fighter. So for Nate's guys, 2 or 3 of them to attack him, one of them being a pro fighter, it's like, bro, the lowest of blows. I think that you could. It's one of the lowest of blows you could do. And it just shows the mental weakness from him and his team. What type of cowards they are. Like I've never had an incident with a coach where I've hit a coach or even like shoved a coach. So I'm just like, these guys are real life pieces.
I'm sure that added more fuel to this training camp and even going to the fight, which is only weeks away, right?
Yeah, we're 3 weeks out. The fuel's been there. But it's just something different. I won't have any remorse. And I'll tell you now, just like I tell anybody that would ask me, I won't have any remorse whatsoever when Nate's on the floor, knocked out, unconscious for like 5-6 minutes till they could revive his ass, And for him and his team to do that is just, I don't know, man. It's just beyond the low blow,
Yeah, and I guess that's something like some of those. Like
they could have picked on me. Those 3 could have jumped on me, but they didn't. They had me there in front of me. They didn't want to do shit. They went after my guy that's a coach. It's like, man, whatever.
Yeah, and it's like an unwritten rule. Like, not the coaches, not the family. It's just
not the family, not the wife, not the kids.
Not the kids.
It's like, whatever, man. It just shows me their character, because I'm a man and I would never do that. But if you do that, maybe we don't have the same type of testicles. You got like vagina mixed with testicles.
Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Your prediction on that? But I could see it. I could visualize it. You taking a fight with Jake Paul. We saw Nate Diaz. What happened? Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Would that be something that interests you?
The problem with Jake Paul is that, like I said, I'm with the UFC. I'm currently signed to the UFC, and Jake Paul's talked too much trash about the UFC and Dana White. So on my agreement with the UFC, he's one of the guys that's not on there. I can't fight this guy. Only reason, because they don't want him to make no money with anybody that's tied with the UFC. So I could fight his brother, Logan Paul. So Logan, what's up, my brother? Stay in shape, man. I heard you be scrapping out there, bare knuckle now. So stay in shape. We can make this happen. But Jake, he's not on the list of guys I can fight. So there's a list of like 25 names on it that the UFC approved that I could go and box, and all types of names, from ex-world champions, undefeated guys in boxing. It's a very good and impressive list. But Jake Paul's one of the guys that's not on the list for the things he said about Dane, about Hunter, about the UFC company, the UFC pay, and this and that. They don't like this dude, so they don't want him to get any money with their company. And I can't blame him.
Yeah. Maybe your prediction for that fight with Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, which is very controversial, what a lot of people are saying, because Mike Tyson's going to be 58 when he faces him. I mean, you saw what just happened recently.
I thought he was a little bit older, but
that's what too.
I mean, you know, I'm not mad at Jake for getting the bag, right? Because obviously he's gonna get a nice paycheck off of it. But I don't know. Like, is Tyson healthy? I know he like recently had to reschedule the fight because something happened. You know, like I don't know how healthy he is. I wouldn't want to see him get hurt. You know, and stuff like that. So more from that area, I'm kind of like, eh. But if he's healthy and he's ready to rock and roll, give us the violence if we want. Don't give us no bullshit. I want neither of these guys hugging or like being best friends in. There's a boxing match. Respect boxing. Go in there and get after him. Somebody knocked off each other out, you know. And prediction, I mean, I don't know, you know. Tyson 10 years ago, yeah, we got to go with Tyson, right? But right now, I don't know. And Jake, I don't really think he's going to go in there and brawl. I think he's just going to move and jab away. And I don't know if it's an exhibition. I don't know if it's 16-ounce gloves. I don't know if it's 2 minute rounds. There's so many variables that I don't know either. So to give a prediction is kind of tough right now for me, you know?
They were saying that they weren't even going to wear headgear. At first they were. Now they weren't. But they're back and forth. I don't know. To be honest, we'll find out probably the week of the fight, even the day before. That's always happened at Jake Paul's fights. But hey,
and that doesn't make me like want to watch, you know, like, or set it on my calendar. It's something I'm looking forward to. Like, I'm sure I'll see it on my phone. Days after it happened, I'll be watching highlights and videos. And for these things that you name, not to diss Jake or not to diss Tyson, but it's just like too many variables that aren't like, is it 10-ounce gloves? Is it 3 minute rounds? Is it 10 rounds? Like, what is it? I want to know these things, and these things ain't out there yet. So kind of makes it like a little weird, you know?
Yeah, it is. Like I said, they're moving to November. We'll find out that week of.
So when is it now?
November now.
November.
Yeah,
wow.
It was supposed to be in July 20th, but Dana says something. I'm going to quote Dylan Dennis. I don't know if I should take that serious, but some people have said that there's more to it, that Mike Tyson, why he couldn't find July 20th. Something like very serious about his health. Dana White said that. So if you look at it on YouTube, and then they moved it to November 20th.
Dana and Tyson are pretty close, so I'm sure Dana would know, you know.
And November 6th or November something, they moved it that long.
It's crazy. It's like several months away. You know? So it must have been a serious health issue.
Yeah, it was really.
That's the thing. That's got to raise a lot of questions. Like, is he fit to fight at that age? You know.
Well, they took him down from a flight, and there was a picture with like. So that's but I don't know. So there's again a lot of questions that are going to be answered, but you can't hate Jake for what he's doing. Obviously, you can't hate what he's doing. And people, I guess, who are very deep into the game will understand, well, you know, it's Mike Tyson. This ain't the Mike Tyson you said 10, 15 years ago, then there'll be something different. But this is Mike Tyson now, grandfather, more than likely. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. When the news broke out, I'm going to be honest with you, when the news broke out, Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal, I was like, oh, they're going to return in the octagon again. But it was this time boxing. How did this idea start overall? Because I'm just curious about that.
Well, initially it was nothing to fight Nate. It was just... I got offered this, my business partner and good friend Dean Toole, won a couple promotions together, and he was talking to Solomon from Fan Meal, which he's the one that put together Mayweather versus Logan Paul, and you know, he pitched him to me, and he was like, bro, I would love to have that guy come fight for my company. So then my guy called me and asked me, he goes, would you be interested in lacing up the gloves in boxing? I had just recently retired, like 2-3 months from MMA, and right around that time, a lot of things have been going on in my life, and I wasn't like in the right path right before that, you know. But I started to train just naturally because I had stopped training for like 45 days, and some things happened that led me back into the training. When I started training and feeling good, I stayed training, and I remembered who I was, and I'm like, man, I can never take a day off whether I compete or not. This is who I am. I have to train every day. And so I started training, and that's when I got the phone call like 2 months into that training session, that training block. I was getting ready to compete again in my own mind. I wasn't gonna fight nobody, but I'm just gonna train, handle my business, handle my promotions that I own, but I'm gonna train like a madman every day. And I got the call, and it's like, hey, would you like to box again? You know, and I was like, tell me more. What are the possibilities? Who are the individuals? And what does it entail, all the ins and outs, you know? And when I heard the whole thing, I was like, I love it. Sign me up. Let's do it, you know? We went through numerous opponents. Nate was one of the ones that we were able to arrange and get. There was a lot of other guys that didn't want to smoke right now. There was other guys that weren't competing no longer. All types of things going back and forth in negotiation. But, you know, we got Nate to accept, and now I'm going to kill his ass, you know? Capetillo
told me you've been here since January.
Yeah.
That's how long you've been here. And I was watching yesterday the first episode. Like I told you, I've always kept up with your fights, and I saw it yesterday. that you're running in the mountains,
Yes, sir.
doing all that old school technique. That's what something that caught my attention the most. That Capetillo said we're running, then we're cutting down a tree. So what kind of old school techniques did you learn from this? Because we never stop learning, right? And in the boxing, the transformation from MMA to boxing, what's something that you've learned the most? Being inside the boxing ring.
Well, for starters, boxing is one of the oldest sports, period. Boxing's been around forever, and at like a very high level, at a very prestigious level. I mean, it was like the biggest sport in the United States for a very, very, very long time. Before football, before basketball, any other sports, boxing was already there, and it was a big worldwide thing as well. Huge in England, obviously huge in like Latin America, places like Mexico, huge in the Caribbean, Cuba, Puerto Rico. So it's one of those sports that you might not know anything of it, never have seen it once in your life, but you sit down, you turn on that TV, and you just start watching, and nobody has to explain it to you. You understand what's going on. So boxing is this massive, huge sport that has so much history and pedigree behind it. And to be here sharpening up my tools with a legend like Jorge Masvidal that's been around so many great fighters. He comes from a generation of coaches as well and good fighters. It's just been amazing, so many tricks of the trade that I've learned, so many little intricate details on, how to set something up or how they make space in tight areas to generate as much power as it possibly can. And it's the same thing in MMA. If a boxer was to come in MMA and I was to show him like anti-wrestling or like how to throw an elbow or knee, there's a lot of detail, a lot of precise detail, that makes a great fighter, so that I'm here just soaking it up, it's amazing. And some of the techniques that I've learned, man, I mean, different jabs, I knew how to jab, but I knew like maybe 2 or 3 different forms of jabs. Since being here, I've learned like 5 or 6 different jabs that, to the naked eye, they might seem very similar, but it's just different ways of throwing in, different positioning, how you put your body and stuff. So I just love it, man. And I kind of got that euphoria when I was a kid and I first stepped into the MMA gym, and I was just learning. Same thing. I'm just here learning and loving life,
Could you see yourself maybe for another year, 2 years doing this continuous boxing? Yes. Because you're a great attraction, just your name itself, with the experience you've had. Like I told you in the beginning before we started doing this interview, just when YouTube was coming around, Kimbo Slice, rest in peace. Yes, and then, the MMA, what you've done in your career, could you see yourself maybe 2 years, 3 years, maybe max doing this?
100%. I'll be here for a good time, I have a 3-fight deal with the company, so it's not just a one-off. UFC gave him permission, and that's also a big shout out to the UFC that let me compete for 3 fights because I'm still signed to the UFC. So I at least have 3 more boxing matches. I'll do another boxing match this year. We got some big names on the list that hopefully will fall through and we'll be able to make them happen. And there's just no telling. I definitely want to fight. I know I'm the best boxer to come out of the UFC, and I just want to go out there and have fun. It's also not that boxing is easy, because by far it's not, but out of the arts, it's the one that's come the most natural to me. I wasn't a great wrestler. Jiu-jitsu didn't really I wasn't great at it, but I knew I had to do it so I could use my hands, so I could hurt people, knock them out, cut them up with my hands. So out of all the arts, the one that I could make a living off is definitely with my hands, I started off as a boxing fan. I discovered boxing when I was like 7, 8 years old, and I was instantly hooked. I never cared for soccer, basketball, baseball, football, none of that shit. I couldn't even force myself to watch. I didn't understand the rules. I didn't give a fuck, First time I saw boxing, I was like, what the fuck is this? And I finally understood the sport, and it was just, I was glued to it. And then maybe 4 or 5 years later, MMA comes around, and I pledged my life to it. And I'm like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. This is the fucking wildest shit I've ever seen, But boxing's always been the sweet spot in my heart, man. I love it. My favorite fighters of all time are boxers, So I'm very excited for boxing right now, especially from 130 to 147. Man, there's some big names. Heat. There's some heat there. 168, 174. There's a lot of fucking heat there too, bro. Morrell versus Benavidez, maybe another huge one. That'd be a fucking sick fucking fight.
Well, I was telling Capetillo, I remember when I shook your hand and I dapped you. And I always like to do that to fighters, because if a fighter, when they dap me and they barely tap and it hurts, I'm like, yeah, this guy has a heavy hand. You remember you doing it to me in Miami? I was like, fuck, that hurt. Morrell was another one. Dude has a huge ass hand, and I was like, fuck. But I was like, that's gonna be an interesting fight if Morel Benavidez does happen.
Morel could box. He has legs, you know. But he's one of these Cubans that likes to fight. He's not, you know, relying on his athleticism, moving and scoring points. He has conditioning, he has power, and he has the mindset for it. I think he's gonna be one of the best guys to transfer on over. Obviously, he's young in his career. I think he's 8 fights now, something like that. So,
around there, yeah.
So
Morel.
So it still might be a big ask for him to fight David now, but you know, I definitely want to see that fight. That is like something I want to see. And then Butterbeef,
Bivol
coming up, and then the winner of that possibly facing David or Canelo or any of these guys. There's a lot of fucking good fights out there right now in boxing. It's a good time to be a boxing fan right now, bro.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. Masvidal, it's an honor, man. Thank you so much. It's an honor. Like I told you when I started, and I was on YouTube, and I barely had my laptop, and I want to watch him. I want to watch him, Kimbo Slice, and now being here talking to you. Thank you. July 6th in Anaheim, Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. Yes, it'll be a great fight. We'll be there, and we'll be able to cover the fight. Thank you so much for letting
July 4th, we celebrate this nation's birthday. July 6th, come out with me for this motherfucker's funeral.